Hello, I'm going to talk slowly. So those of you that have an advertisement at the beginning, you can go ahead and click on for that thing. And here we are. Again, for the second time this month, I feel like a newbie starting out because early on, 4 years ago, I was so nervous interviewing guests. And over 4 years, it became not commonplace, but it became, I didn't get so anxious or nervous anymore. So I think I've gotten better in that respect. But with Mr. Deity a couple weeks ago, Brian Dalton, and now Kenneth Humphreys, two pioneers in the atheist YouTube community and content creators, I am not going to lie. For days now, I've been trying to get everything just right, the questions just right. I've been experiencing a little bit of anxiety. So just so you know, I'm going to fanboy out a little bit. First of all, we've got the author of Jesus Never Existed, An Introduction to the Ultimate Heresy. His website has 8 million visitors. He's a YouTube atheist pioneer. He has paved the way for future generations of all the content creators, including myself, and has been a huge influence on most of us. He's a debater. He's a public speaker. He has over 5 million total views on YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, Kenneth Humphreys, thanks a lot for coming to the show.
It's a pleasure. Hi, and greetings to your audience. Some of them may know me, some of them may not. I don't know, but I'll give a brief introduction to myself then.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah, it was something like 20 years ago that I was looking for a subject to investigate, and I chanced upon Christianity and thinking, well, it's interesting. Let's have a look at that. And so for 20 years, I studied and published material on Jesus, right? On Jesus, on Christianity, and what I saw as the reality. And the reality was, well, it didn't come as too much of a surprise to me, but the reality was it was all hogwash. You know, there was no true Jesus Christ. There was no genuine God figure. And the rest of it is a story of fabrication and fraud. And that's what I've charted. That's what I've charted. For my sins, I've spent quite a lot of time reading and researching and then preparing material to enlighten those who were interested. It's been an interesting story. 20 years. I've grown a little bit weary of it in this COVID period. I've moved on to somewhat different subjects, but I suppose there's still an interest in Jesus there. I think for my own purposes, I've established beyond any shadow of doubt that beyond the fraud, there is no genuine religious content. I mean, I am not an intermittent atheist. I am a solid atheist. I've always been an atheist. I don't believe in spooks or gods or anything of that ilk. And fine. So what have I done? Well, this is the book that I produced. Jesus Never Existed. The one that Jim just mentioned was a smaller version. It's a complication that appears on Amazon, unfortunately. There's an introduction that is listed. The original thick book doesn't actually get listed on Amazon, but I had a certain falling out with Amazon, and I haven't bothered with them. So they don't sell my main book, but they do sell the little book, so that's fine. So there's the book. There's at a certain point in time, I moved on to studying or rather preparing material for YouTube, because around about year 2005, I think, yeah, YouTube appeared, and people began to suggest to me, why don't you produce videos? And I realized that we weren't in an age that was particularly given to reading web-based articles, particularly if they were long and took a lot of concentration and attention. So a more popular approach was to prepare videos, which I started off with 5-minute videos. I mean, who could object to a 5-minute video? 5-minute video for people in a hurry. So that's what I started with. And but after a while, fans began to say, we would appreciate something a bit longer. So in the end, they began to grow. Some of them are half an hour. Some of them, I think, are over an hour now. So Horses for Courses, I covered much of the material found in the New Testament. I wouldn't say everything, but certainly a great deal of it, to raise doubts in anybody who's got the slightest uncertainty about his faith. I mean, faith isn't something that really figures very highly here in the UK. I have to say, this is largely a post-Christian society. America, I think, is in a slightly different, if not a major different way. You do have your strong and large evangelicals who are, in a world of their own. But for anybody who's rational, I mean, I've provided the sort of nuts and bolt evidence of what amounts to the Jesus story. So there it's there. Now, am I right? Well, I'm always told by Christians, of course, I'm wrong, because they don't respond to facts and logic. They respond to their faith, the certainty that Jesus is on a daily basis talking to them. I mean, there is no rational response to that, and I don't set out to try and convert such people. They're lost in a world of their own, and if it makes them happy, well, so be it. But I'd rather, as most people would, I think, have truth over some comforting falsehood, and that's the choice that you have. That's where I began. I mean, where would you like me to continue, Jim?
Well, Ken, before we dive right in, I like to get the plugs right at the top of the show. So in the description section, folks, you're going to see the links to Ken's book. I know there's two versions. There's that thin version and there's the bigger version. I looked online on Amazon. I think that the link is to the smaller one, the user's guide, let's call it. And then there's the link to Ken's YouTube channel and the website, which... Okay, for the most part, I don't even have a website. I do have a website, but it takes you right to my Facebook, Atheist Edge Facebook page. So I don't really keep very few people keep a website unless they're blogging. This one, if you're going to go to a website, go to this one. It's just chock full. I cannot tell you how much information you're going to glean off of that. And for those
someone once told me, someone once told me it's more extensive than the NASA website.
I could believe that. I can believe that. It's incredible. Now, what's cool about this, as I feel very fortunate, I get the opportunity to expose someone like you, a pioneer, someone that started. I don't know how long ago you started YouTube videos, but you have to be one of the first. I mean, it was Thunderfoot, Bionic Dance, Non-Stamp Collector, Dark Matter, you, Potholer 54, 43 Alley, True Puka, and Atheist Experience. I think at one time that was all. I mean, there was a dearth of atheism when YouTube first started, and it's a great chance for me to expose some of the viewers that are just starting their road, on atheism, and using YouTube to facilitate that and to expose them to you. So how long had you been? When did you start on YouTube?
Well, I think it was not long, perhaps 1 year after YouTube was established. It was 2005, 2006, something like that. It was somewhere in that region. I've been running YouTube stuff now for probably 10 or more years. I don't know. the thing was, of course, it's communication with an audience, and it became painfully obvious this is the way the market was moving. I mean, I was being asked at the same time, okay, you've written a book, is it available online? Is there a sort of a quick entry, and people want that. They want something quick and easy to digest. And so I've been jumping around there trying to think in terms of how to get the material out there, and keep it engaging. I mean, the point is, there's no point in writing volumes and volumes of material that only a few academics would read. I mean, what is the point of that? I'm trying to communicate to, if you like, the thinking person in the street, not the idiots, but thinking person who perhaps when they're first presented with the idea, well, Jesus as a person never existed, and they might say, oh wow, I'd never thought of that. And if you challenge them to find some evidence of Jesus, they may take on the challenge, but within a week or two, they'll discover there is no evidence for Jesus. There's only the reports of Christians later on saying there was a Jesus. It's very different. 100 years later, you might have found a Christian who talked about a Jesus, but there was nobody starting the thing off originally. So there we go.
Has the platform YouTube? Have you branched out to any other platforms, or is YouTube still your main way to showcase outside of your books?
Well, when I produce a video, I have, to me, YouTube is the first choice. I mean, okay, that I believe it does have some competitors, but YouTube is a mixed blessing in a way. Yes, it is a new form of democracy. Anybody, idiots included, can put web pages up or videos up, rather. There's no. It breaks the mold of TV companies, saying what we can see and what we can't see. So if you've got a weird and wacky idea, you can put it up there. You might get slapped down nowadays if you get a bit abusive or terrorist inclined. I don't know, but there is an openness to it. The sad thing I find with YouTube is this: the whole thing is geared to monetization, making money, and frankly, I didn't start studying Jesus to make money. What is the point of that? There will be probably easier and quicker ways to make money than hacking through Jesus, so and unlike the accusation often thrown at me by apologists, they say, well, you write books because they sell well, they're very popular, you make money out of selling books. But atheists don't really make much money out of selling books. You don't sell them in anything like the quantities you sell religious books. They're the ones that sell. So YouTube is trying to monetize everything, and of course then they put these irritating adverts on things as well, where you have to wait for it to wait the 5 seconds or wait for it to finish and so on. So that's sad, but I mean that's America, that's capitalism, isn't it? So that's how it works. Right. So I don't know. I'm aware that there are many variations now in the wonderful world of technology. There's always new things. I mean, you don't know what Jesus is up to and so on. But there we go.
You mentioned there's a disproportionate number of theist books out there, and go to any Barnes and Noble, any bookstore, and you will just see there will be multiple, not just shelves, there'll be aisles, like multiple aisles of Christian books, and not just Bibles, but Christian fiction, Christian, self-help. And then you go to it, and it's so small, they lump the atheism, agnosticism, humanism, and philosophy all in the same section. And it's one portion of one shelf. It's really this big. And it will have God is not great, It'll have Dawkins, it'll have David Hume, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's sad.
I'd say, Jim, that is more American than European.
Well, that's good. That's good to
Yeah.
hear, at least. Yeah.
We don't have these mega churches where thousands of people go. We don't have the TV evangelicals who are making themselves very rich selling Jesus.
It's the fact that maybe over there you have an official religion, the Church of England. So, does that squelch having an official religion? It's kind of a contradiction that you have an official religion, yet you're way less religious. We don't have an official religion. So that's kind of like an open market for them to thrive, almost like the capitalism in itself.
Absolutely. And when I studied the origins of American history, and you think, well, why did the Americans get this sort of bee in their bonnet about Jesus? It's because you didn't have an official religion, and anyone could set up as a preacher and start his own church, and everyone was you're in business, aren't you? It's a competitive model. I believe there are cities where the churches are in a line. They're all like so many fast food joints, but it's fast Jesus joints.
You are not lying, Ken. I mean, I could swing a dead cat and hit 5 churches just right here near my house. It's incredible. When you first started, and the big thing was the internet is where religions come to die. And that was the running kind of early meme, right? And the internet is the one that pretty much was the nail in the coffin of religion. And really a lot of the religiosity, even in the United States. Now, it looks like it's expanding, but it is dying. Now, it's consolidating. Mega churches are getting more popular, but the mom and pop churches are dying. Religion is dying here. It's an objective fact. You can look at it. And I think the internet, like you said, right when you're starting about a decade, maybe 12 years ago, that's when it started. And now another case in point, maybe you've seen this, Ken, but developing nations, I don't know if you're a member of any of these, maybe Facebook, these open debate pages, these forums where atheists and Christians debate, and you'll get a lot of people from developing nations. And it's clear that I think their area just got access to the internet, maybe, or just relatively recently. And so you see it repeating itself, places in Africa and Eastern Europe that didn't have ready access to the internet, and now they do. And you're just seeing this again. This religion the internet is where the religions come to die all over again. It's another wave I see.
Yeah, very true. I mean, I've drawn the parallel in the past when I given talks. It's comparable to the arrival of the printing press and what effect that had on the church and its monopoly of propaganda, because suddenly things could be produced, mass produced, and multiple copies, and therefore it was more accessible and people could discuss it and so on. And so that's when the Reformation began, and churches fragmented. But now they've actually got an existential threat, because there's so much common sense and logical stuff on atheist websites that people, even if they remain at sort of nominally a Christian, they're losing their commitment to the faith. And I think give them a generation or two and people will say bye-bye. It'll just be a sideshow. A few freaks will want to have Jesus in their life, but most people will live their life without religion. That's what the optimistic belief I have, certainly. I think I've played a small part in making that happen.
You are not giving yourself enough credit, Ken. I mean, this is just incredible. This is you were one of my first influences. There, I said it. Some of my favorite videos of yours are just the impromptu set up a camera and you're doing a Q&A or a public speaking thing for maybe a small. Now it looks like maybe a small group of humanists or a larger group of maybe sometimes at conventions? Talk about those speaking tours, and do you still do those?
The funeral industry has been ripping off the public for more than a decade because the majority of people don't know this simple trick that takes just a few minutes. I was furious when I heard the BBC announce a couple of weeks ago.
Occasionally, as I say, COVID has slowed everything down for a year or two. But yeah, if I'm invited and it sounds an interesting venue, I mean, I've just been asked to go over to Denmark, and yeah, well, why not? You know,
That's awesome.
a few years back now, I attended a conference in Athens, which was a delight because it's obviously an important city for the development of civilization in Europe, and it was a refreshing place to be. Yeah, so yeah. I'm quite happy to talk about Jesus and religion. I suppose the thing is, I'm less enthusiastic about talking with Christians nowadays because they're not honest debaters. They're not honest debaters. Their whole position is one of beginning. Well, they know what they believe. You know, that's not going to be compromised. They know what they believe, so it's all about a strategy for defending their faith. So, you know, it's a dishonest approach, and their sole purpose is to ensure their brethren remain the brethren. You know, keep them in the fold, keep them, you know, subordinate to the church. They don't want to lose any, you know, but they do. I mean, if I published my mail book, you'd see how not just believers, but people who have been preachers, people who have been, you know, had their own ministries, have actually lost their faith and have thanked me for the role that I've played in that. You know, they've had doubts, and I've sort of opened up those doubts, and that's, you know, and I don't do it for money. They don't pay me, but you know, it's lovely that that is possible.
It's sad that not sad, but it's unfortunate that so many there's a new wave. There's been several waves since you started, but there's this newer wave of atheist content creators, and I think maybe they're I don't know, they come in, I think they're being they come in expecting to make money, and I always tell them YouTube content creation is like poker. It's a really, really hard way to make an easy living, and only a small percentage can actually do it full time. And it's not about the money, but I've noticed you, and I want to get to our buddy Truth Surge. We have a shared friend, and I want to talk about him a little bit. But besides Truth Surge's, he's got two really good multi-part video series that I've already told you guys before. You have to go watch it. But Kenneth Humphreys, and I don't know if you have them broken. Yes, you do. You have them broken down into playlists, and some of them are 9 videos long, some are 13, but they're not lengthy, but you got them broken down into different sections, and those are just gold. You have to write it down, everyone, right now while you're thinking about it. Write down, go to every playlist. I would suggest going to the Easter one first, the Easter Miracle one. I think it's like 14 videos long, or maybe 9. But what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, monetization. Yeah, the hardest way to make an easy living: playing poker professionally and doing YouTube. And if you're in it for the money, you are absolutely right. You're in the wrong place. And what's unfortunate is after a year, they're maybe at 1,000 subs, and they think that's going to be more than $10 a month in ad revenue. You got to do, first off, you got to do some stuff on the side. You got to, if you're going to do it, you got to sell merchandise. If you're serious about it, you got to branch out. You can't just stick with advertising revenue. You got to get sponsors too. You, Truth Surge, don't seem terribly concerned with your videos aren't monetized. They don't seem to be. Neither is a Truth Surge. Some of these you'll see these old school videos. They don't have an ad at the beginning, nothing in the middle. There's no ads on them.
No, No, I've never wanted to put adverts on, and you know, it's a distortion of education. You know, it's you know, I just don't hold with it. You know, I just don't hold with it, well. There's a joy in not having adverts, and I say it gets very irritating when you get some other advert appear. You know, I can't stop YouTube doing that. They do it anyway. You know, whether I'm monetized or not, they will stick some adverts on. The other thing I've not stopped, because you know, it's a compliment in a way, but many people have downloaded my videos and then uploaded them on their own sites. You know, I have a dim idea of how many copies are out there.
Yeah, see, that's kind of a no-no, especially if you're trying to monetize, but you don't have a problem with that.
It's knowledge, isn't it? I mean, and I don't share the American dream of being a multi-millionaire and, you know, driving around in flash motors and flying about. You know, it's not what I want to do. It's you know, it's maybe when you're 20, that's what you think life's all about, but it's not what I think life's all about.
Your channel has about 20,000 views. And I talked to Bionic Dance about this just recently. She has about roughly the same, and she is again just one of my huge influences, another pioneer in the field. But 20,000 views 10 years ago was a massive amount of subscribers. 20,000 subscribers was a massive amount. I mean, you were on top of the heap. Now it's nothing. If you don't have a quarter of a million,
no.
It's crazy.
No, and you know, Madonna could show her breasts and should get 10 million. You know, this is the world we live in, isn't it? So
it's subjective. All right, so I want to talk some more about just YouTube in general and just how you do things behind the scenes. But right now, I would be remiss, especially for some of you that are here, to what is Ken Humphreys? What's his thing? What is he all about? Well, he's best known for, he was, if not the first, was one of the first people that woke up and said, hey, the emperor's not wearing any clothes. Jesus may not have even existed as a mortal man. And I think if you weren't the first, you were the one that brought it to the attention of people, maybe far before the Richard Carriers and the Robert Prices even.
Oh, I was there before Richard Carrier, for sure. I know that as a fact. And see, and right. I didn't mess around. The title of the book, right? It wasn't, was there a Jesus, or, you know, is he a man, or it's Jesus never existed. I'd state it very clearly. My website is called JesusNeverExisted.com. I didn't want to promote my name. It wasn't about promoting me. I wanted to get that idea across. He never existed. Yes, you might say there's a value in Christianity. That's a plausible argument. You know, it gives people something to work towards, or keeps them disciplined, perhaps. But, you know, as an historical figure, he cannot be maintained. You cannot maintain that. I noticed, Jim, you suggested that you perhaps tended towards maybe there was a man behind it all. Yeah.
You read my mind. That was the next question. Is I am still of, you know, I've had Richard Carrier in studio on numerous times. He slept on our couch for 3 days when he came through town, so I got a chance. We've sat at bars arguing over this, and of course I'm way out of my depth, and with you the same. I have some very, very flimsy evidence, but I still hold on to the idea that probably there was a man that all this legend is built around. And really my best evidence is a single verse in Galatians that talks about Paul. You and I will both agree did exist. He existed in ascertainable history. And he writes, and it's in one of we already got some point of contention. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, okay, I'm following what you're saying there. But let me make one thing very clear. Was there a Jesus in Palestine, Israel, Judea in the 1st century AD? Well, if we allow for the fact that nobody was called Jesus, it's the J didn't exist in the Hebrew language, Aramaic, Yeshua. Well, okay, somebody like that. Now, yes, they did exist. In fact, if we say in that whole first century, there were possibly up to 500,000 Jewish residents. There were probably 6,000 or 8,000 people called Yeshua. That is, I'd say that's perfectly obvious, and you can prove that mathematically. If we wonder about the name Jesus, well, if you only have to look at the high priests of the Jewish temple. So this is up to the century up to the year 70 when it got destroyed. Well, of about 11 high priests, four of them were called Jesus, Yeshua. Okay, so there's no mystery about the name. Now you say, well, you think there was a man. Well, okay, there were lots of men called, Jesus knocking around, Okay, so do you think the legend came from that man? Do you really think that? What was it that man did in reality that would have caused other people, perhaps 40 years later, to write a story making up some fantastic tales about him? Would you really need that man at all? Couldn't you just make it up anyway?
Well, Hercules didn't exist in ascertainable history. And I think Dr. Carrier calls it euhemerization, is when you build a God person, a God human out of whole cloth. Is that the correct way to use that word? Yeah.
Yeah, it has been built out of whole cloth. It's not like it's a tale that's been exaggerated, because all the little stories about Jesus, I think in Mark there's about 44 of them, all these tiny little stories, right? That perhaps take one or two sentences for the whole story to be told. None of them you can say, well, that is definitely so. You either believe it or you don't. And there's no reason to believe it any more than you would believe anything similar about any other character like Dionysus or Mithras or whatever. If you heard something about Mithras was born out of the side of a cave, you wouldn't say, well, that's obviously true, would you? No, those things you obviously dismiss as nonsense. And the same thing is about Jesus. If you take off this sort of reverence for this person, none of those things hold out. It's not like it's a Julius Caesar, but some of the stories have been exaggerated, or Alexander the Great, but there is no core to it. There are just these little tales. And okay, you refer to Paul and to Corinthians, but
it's Galatians, yeah.
Oh, Galatians. Okay.
Yeah.
To Galatians. Yeah. Paul is a very problematic individual if he was an individual, anything like the one that figures in the New Testament, right? Very problematic. And unlike Jesus, there are no secular references to Paul at all. No historian of any merit, either Jewish or Greek or Roman, wrote anything about Paul. Why would they? What sort of non-entity was he that they would take notice of him? So we don't have anything to back up his existence. Okay, we have the letters. Now you could say, well, letters prove there was a Paul. Yeah, that's plausible. But I've often drawn people's attention to the curious nature of these so-called letters. They are massive. Most of them are massive, and they are supposed to be written by an itinerant preacher, sort of almost on his knee while he's sort of off marching somewhere. And you think these are letters that he scribbled one day. Can you imagine? I mean, somewhere here I've got a copy of a papyrus letter. Or a letter written on papyrus from the 1st century, right? It's about 12 lines, has to be in from the edge because papyrus, flakes. It's only written on one side. And then you compare that letter, which was written in the 1st century from one Roman to another. How many sheets of papyrus would it take for 9,000 words? You know, you are talking, you know, this is something you'd have to get Amazon to deliver. You know, now that's the first thing, length. And then why would I say doubt that it's genuine? Because it's stitched together. Many scholars reach the conclusion there are several documents sewn together to make up one particular thing that we now refer to. So they're not written as letters. Are they even written by Paul? Some of them have a common character, that's for sure. So a person might have been behind some of them, but was that character anything like the character described in the New Testament? And just to remind you of Paul in the New Testament, right? He starts off as a persecutor of the church. He's like the lead persecutor of the Jews. Act 1. Act 2, this supposed happening on the road to Damascus, right? Then he's a Christian, right? He joins the brethren in Jerusalem. Okay. Then what does he do? Well, he's taken back to Tarsus to keep him out of the way. The persecution without Paul ends. So it was entirely down to Paul, this persecution. But then he goes off and he founds churches all around Anatolia and the Aegean. You know, he writes incredible theology in these letters. And then, of course, he has this miraculous journey to Rome on a boat, you know, but the boat gets shipwrecked, but he gets rescued and survives the shipwreck. And then it goes on and on and on. The whole story is a collection of silly tales, none of which are true. So I don't think Paul wrote a letter to the Galatians in the way that you are referring to. So if you still cling to that, I'd throw it away.
You have hamstringed my argument at the beginning from its first premise. You know what? I'm not married to it though, Ken. I'm taking little notes as I go along, and man, I'm so piled up right now. So I'm just going to unload on you. Okay. So you did say there was many Jesuses back then. His actual name was Yeshua or Yehoshua in Hebrew, which means Joshua. Yep. In English, why did we choose Jesus as the name to call him? Why don't we call him I've got a good friend. He's a pastor next town over. A good friend of mine. We were both military, so we got that shared. His name's Josh. And when I first met him, I was like, oh, Josh, like your Savior's name. And he looked at me like, what? I was like, yeah, Jesus, his real name is Joshua. And he didn't know. Why aren't we calling him Joshua? I'm just going to go down. You know what? I'll just ask you one at a time.
Well, it derives from the Greek use. It migrated from the Greek Yeshu through the Latin version to ultimately to modern English, and I think it was in the 16th century we first derived the J, so we didn't even have a J until the 16th century. So it's a recent, but I mean, most people don't, quite happy to think he was called Jesus. It's wonderful when they quote him, verbatim as if he really said all these things. But the language was if he had been alive, his language would have been very different.
Another favorite video of yours that I love is the Sermon on the Mount. It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't on a mount. It's an anthology. It's a collection of all this stuff. And none of it was Jesus. And it was, you guys have to go see that one. I think it might be titled Sermon on the Mount. What mount? What sermon? You said a lot of people in the comment section had the same question. So based on the fragments, if you extrapolate and you get something way bigger than a letter, which makes a lot of sense. But even in one of your videos, you talk about fragment P52, the oldest one, which is like 12 words out of the book of John, I think. And it's front and back. So front and back makes a difference sometimes. And that could have been an actual one complete gospel, right? When it was complete.
Sorry, you have to run that by me.
Okay, so
Are we talking
P52 is a
of Mark?
is a
Are you talking of
what-
Mark's gospel here?
no, it's the pericope. It's the woman caught in adultery.
Oh right. Oh, that
remember
story.
that one? Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't in the original gospel. That's
It's
right.
an interpolation anyway. That's right. I forgot.
It was added about something like the 11th century. You know?
Isn't that funny?
But
You guys in the comment section, if you guys don't know, viewing this, one of the most, arguably the most popular story in the Bible, the woman caught in adultery, and how Jesus deals with the Pharisees, trying to catch him, here's what the rules are. What do you say? That was written, what would you say? Definitely decades after John was written, or whatever book it appeared in.
Well, I don't think it was written by or in the time of John, whoever John was. It is a story, and it's a story. It's the same way about Jesus catching various, fish. You remember the story about, what is it, 153 fish or something?
Oh, right.
It's a story told about Pythagoras. It's a riddle on Pythagoras. But of course, it's a nice story. So you just rub out Pythagoras and put in Jesus, and then it's a story about Jesus. Jesus gets the credit for that story. He gets us credit for almost anything. Turning water into wine. Well, that was something Dionysus did. The god of wine. But of course Jesus does it. He comes along. I'm the one who turns it in water into wine. Poseidon calms the sea. What does Jesus do? He calms the sea. He sort of well, one size fits all, you could say.
You were mentioning the parallel. They take from other stories. So the last, we did a 4-part video series, just wrapped it up. It's a playlist on our channel. We compare the book of Joshua, the book of Jonah, to the older Greek Argonaut, Jason and the Argonauts tales, right? Which is 600 to 800 to 1200 years older in oral form, at least, than the book of Jonah. And we cite 17 parallels of why they just ripped off the Greek tale. I got the inspiration for that from Truth Surge's famous 37-part series on comparing Mark with Homer's Odyssey. Absolutely. Which blew my mind. And every time I turn it on to somebody that's never seen it before, it blows their damn mind too. So what I did, you were a huge influence too. You showed tons of parallels at the very last, the series finale, the last few seconds of that video. In fact, the last words of our video is, and in the immortal words of Kenneth Humphreys, it's not truth, it's not history, it's just more astounding rubbish from the Bible. Which, you guys, when you start, which you're going to, everybody, you're going to go start watching those videos. And where did that saying come from? Did it just arrive organically one day?
I guess it did. Let me say, before I was preparing the videos for YouTube, I was preparing audios, and it was audio only. And I was working at that time with something called what is it, Atheist TV? I'll try and think of his name. Out of Oklahoma.
Seth Andrews? Atheist TV was an American atheist project that failed. It was a way to put atheism, kind of like YouTube channels, but on more mainstream television channel that through an app, through your smart TV. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was something like that. Anyway, for them, I was a guest speaker, and then I became a regular contributor. And so that's when I started to prepare something as a sort of clip. It wasn't the whole show. It was just a clip where, they introduced me, and then I told any particular story that it was, and I had to finish it off with I at first was going to call it not astounding rubbish, but ripping yarn, right? I was going to call it a ripping yarn, something from Monty Python, if anyone knows Monty Python, right? But I was told, no, that's not known in America. We can't call it ripping yarn, call it astounding rubbish. So I thought, cool. Okay. And then I sort of prefaced it with, okay, it's not true. It's not history. It's astounding rubbish. And it proved immensely popular.
Oh, it's just awesome. But I get a little, it's Pavlovian, because every time I hear it, I know that video's over. I'm like, I wanted you to keep talking. But of course, you have tons of videos. Oh, next question. That's a great segue. The last video you've uploaded is 5 months ago. What can we do to get you to produce content more regularly?
Ask. I mean, you mentioned about younger people coming on, and yes, I am pleased by that. From being a lone voice, and there are bands of internet-enabled atheists writing all kinds of wonderful stuff. Yeah, that's true. But so I thought, well, stand back a bit. I don't have to spoon feed everybody all the time. They can work it out, because the secret, I think, was deciding you don't take the whole damn spread of Christianity on it in one go. You just select something, one thing, one silly story, and you just explain why that silly story is moonshine, right? Is nonsense. And then you can say, it's not true, it's astounding rubbish. And that works, because the point is, I've been a teacher. I don't know if you've been a teacher, but probably 80% of what you say to a class is they don't remember. It's forgotten, right? 80% is they don't even hear it. Maybe 10 or 20% they hear. So it's the same if in any talk like this. There's only a certain absorption rate. So I thought, okay, get one clear idea. Let's explain why Jesus, when he was in the temple and he overturned the money changers, let's explain why that is absolute nonsense, right?
Oh, that's a good
enough.
One.
That's enough. And it sort of, so it works at this sort of the core of belief. If you start saying, well, okay, so that's not true and that's not true, I don't think any of it's true, which is the correct conclusion.
If a Christian's reading the Bible and they see something about why 158 fish, or if they start thinking, how big was the Jerusalem temple? And then, as far as I can tell, a lot of times you're the first person. You were the first one to bring a lot of these ideas up. Like the Jerusalem temple was like, what was it, like 8 football fields big?
Oh, yeah.
And the reason there was money changing in the temple is because people were pilgrims coming from far away, and they had to buy. They're not going to bring the goat or their sacrifice with them. They're going to buy the sheep or the goat there at the temple. So they come to the temple for the. This is pre-Jesus, when you had to sacrifice a goat once a year.
Yeah.
So it all made sense.
Yeah, that's true. And one man, he doesn't even call on the disciples to give him a hand, does he? Just one man and a whip, and the peace-loving Jesus sort of kicked up a fuss, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he would have been on his ass in a heartbeat. The Roman guards everywhere, and you're not going to go flip over tables in 8 football fields long. So Truth Surge, I'm a huge fan of his too. Another atheist YouTube pioneer. There was a phone interview you did with him, in my opinion, the best interview ever. Just the chemistry you two have. My question is, are you in contact with him or people like him, some of the old school content creators? Do you have regular contact with them? And are you a member of any local in your area atheist, agnostic, humanist groups?
Well, let me simply point out that, you know, time passes and a number of the people I was working with have died, right? Unfortunately, some of them rather younger than you would have expected, like Acharya. If you remember Acharya S, the Christ the conspiracy. I knew Acharya, and very sad. She got breast cancer, and nothing could be done about it. And
Hector Avalos just recently passed.
Who?
Hector Avalos. He's another Jesus mythicist.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it will happen. I try my best, but I might pass. But I won't be going to heaven.
When you first started, you caught a lot of flack because you were basically the only guy shouting in the void, right? That there was a possibility that Jesus never existed as a human being. With the rise of so many scholars are now on board with this. It's a surprising number. It's not just Richard Carrier and Robert Price anymore. You know,
no,
are you pleased with this?
They were early. They were early.
Yes, right. But now the popularity has risen to such a point where it's not just, you know, unheard of to bring the idea up. Are you pleased with the growth of this idea, especially in scholarship?
Very much so. I mean, it's still decried by academics in academic institutions who think there's only a proper way to do it, and that's in their scholarly seminars and the rest of it. They hate independent scholars who are capable of reading the books and reaching their own conclusions and putting that information out. I mean, that's why I put information on the web originally, just to test my ideas out. And if people wanted to say it's all wrong and this is why, that was fine. You know, I didn't have a problem with that. But of course, Christians didn't have that open mind. They just wanted to shut me down. You know, they just, you know, you can't say this. You really shouldn't be saying this, you know. And now it's different. It's different. And it's refreshing that, well, to me, it's simply the realization of like any other truth. You know, I remember that theory about plate tectonics. You remember that theory? You know, it came out before the First World War. The idea of plate tectonics, that the continents were moving around, and people thought, "Oh, that's a bit weird. Continents don't float. That's not possible." It took from before the First World War until the 1960s before they came up with actual evidence of magnetism that should prove that the ocean floor spreading and continents were, you know, actually moving, but over a colossal period of time. So ideas have their day eventually. And I think, you know, the end of Jesus and his moving from so-called reality to mythology is in process. He, you know, yes, he'll be alongside Moses and Abraham and all the other fabricated characters of that period. You know, that's how humanity evolves. That's how humanity evolves, and it's a pleasing development. Yeah, in a world that's often going down the tubes, that's a pleasing thing.
That's true. It reminds me of, I don't know how they taught it, the Cretaceous period over in England, but when I was a kid in grade school, the leading theory of how dinosaurs died off was the coming of a rapid ice age, and they all just froze to death. Well, just in my lifetime, of course, it's common knowledge now that it was a meteor hit off the Yucatan Peninsula, which changed everything. So yeah, sometimes it can happen fast. I've seen this transformation, the Jesus mythicism idea. There's a group up in Minnesota. I don't know if you have any contact with them.
Minnesota mythicists.
Yes,
I do know them quite well. Yes, yep. Yep.
They are big proponents of it as well, and they popularized it as well as you and the other mythicist scholars. I want to talk just briefly. I don't want to give him too much of a platform, but I want to talk briefly about a mutual friend of ours, a mutual adversary, should I say, Nick Peters. So on your channel, there's a debate between you and he, audio only. You're at a radio station in UK, and he's over here in the States. So he is the same person that just eviscerated both of my books. The actual word count of his critiques of my books exceed the word count of my books themselves. That wouldn't be a problem. It's not a big deal. Two things about that: the fact that he is constantly on me to read the critiques, expecting me to read them and comment on them. And when I don't, he gets his butt hurt. And two, the critiques themselves are just very snide and mean-spirited.
Christian, I can say
no,
that.
very
right?
mean-spirited, very snarky. I welcome critique, and I'm willing to change my mind. But in that manner, that tone, did he come across that way to you during the debate, or what were your thoughts on him?
Well, I remember him well. He's got a speech impediment, hasn't he? That makes it very challenging for the people listening to him.
That's right.
I don't know if he should be congratulated for being so bold to take it on anyway, but it doesn't endear him to the audience for sure. He's also, like most apologists, he's dogmatic and is unscrupulous in order to maintain and everything in the garden is roses and Jesus is there. It's basically dishonest, and they will throw anything, just throw anything. And in the end, it's really why I think people like Richard Dawkins sensibly don't even debate with these people, because they're not interested in true debate, where they listen and consider what's said. No, they are defending the faith, and well, what can you say?
Yeah, that's all the platform. Well, I hate to advertise them, but if you want to see those critiques, I'm not afraid of people looking at them. In fact, he makes actually a few very good points, which is unfortunate the way he presented them. But I think his website is Deeper Waters Ministry, so you can go look at it there. Nick Peters. I
saw one of your books, Jim. What was the other one? What was the one?
The one we did an 89-part series. We started in November of last year, and we just finished in like May, early June. So it was 89 videos long. And so I took that book and I turned it into 666 things your religious leaders never taught you. It was 89 parts long, 46 collaborators. So we're really proud of that. So that book was Pulling Back the Green Curtain. That was my second one. My first one, don't buy it. It's got typos, grammatical errors, and I'm too lazy to go back and republish a second edition. It's called Most People Believe in God, Can They All Be Wrong? Right. Yeah, that is just 25 of the most common things I'm asked by believers that I'm just tired of answering. So I just put it into book form.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing about Christians is they are repetitive. They are repetitive ad nauseum. They don't have new arguments. They don't have nobody for centuries has found new evidence. They just repeat the same dogmatic, twisted defenses of Christianity all the time. And I mean, I think when I last had to refer to it, I had 53 articles in which I referred to Josephus, the Jewish historian, and yet it didn't stop Christians sort of probably reading the first part of one other article and saying to me, you should look at Josephus, as if I'd never considered him. You think, oh God almighty, you just don't do your homework, do you? You just want to defend the faith.
If it's Josephus, Tacitus, Tertullian, Pliny the Younger, all these are very, even not just scholars. I mean, your average atheist knows about these already.
Oh yeah, sure.
They take us for kind of like, I don't know, like we don't know what we're talking about.
Well, I don't know if you'd say it's true of the States. In Britain, it's certainly true. Christians don't read their Bible. Right? They don't read, full stop. You know,
like Bart Ehrman says, he says when he's teaching his undergrad New Testament class, he's like, he's always astounded by how much faith they put into a book that they're so committed to a book that they know nothing about and they have never read.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a very sad mindset. Yeah, very sad.
Ken, I am out of questions and I still want to talk. So I had a backup plan. I don't know if you're willing to do this. We could do this, or we could talk some more about Jesus mythicism. I was proposing. I tried it earlier, a couple weeks ago, and it went off like gangbusters. So I want to try it now. A little game show. If you're willing, if you and I can put our heads together and just, as we think of them, think up some very difficult, make them as difficult as possible. Some questions about Jesus mythicism, New Testament, and whoever gets them right in the comment section, in the live chat, you'll get a point. And at the end, whoever's got the most points. Now, last time, let me preface this: all my merchandise sales, my t-shirt money from the show, and my Patreon goes to PayPal. And I checked my PayPal the day before. It wasn't much in there. It was $17.30. And so I gave it all of them. But it's been over a week since I've checked it now. So I don't know what's in there. So I'm gonna offer my people this. I'm not gonna give it all to you. I'm gonna give you half, if that's fair. Whatever's half of what's in my PayPal right now. I don't even know. I haven't checked it in a week. And at the end of this, I'll pull it up and you'll be able to see. So Ken and I are going to think of, let's shoot for 10 questions. Whoever gets the most correct is going to win half of Atheist Edge's merchandise and Patreon sales for a week. All right. So the first one I had in mind, and this will give you a chance to maybe think of one. Are you cool with doing this, Ken?
Yeah, sure. Let's give it a whirl.
All right. My first and only question that I thought of beforehand was, okay, ready? Number one is, how many of the 13 Pauline epistles are known to be genuine? And Ken would have a problem with this. But we're talking mainstream consensus, not, and I wouldn't even call your idea fringe. It's not fringe anymore, but commonly believed to be. How many of the 13 are commonly believed to be genuine? Okay. So, is this correct, Ken? Based on just mainstream consensus, I think it's a little bit off.
I have a problem with that one. Yeah, there are people around who say there are seven. Is
that the most mainstream?
But I mean, what is so interesting to me about saying there are 7, that means there's 6 inauthentic, fraudulent epistles presented under the name of Paul. Now, what does that tell you about the early church then? They fraudulently presented material, for their own purposes, not because it was true, but for their own scheming.
One of your videos talks about, you list off all the different ways to say fake. And I kind of stole your idea in one of my series. In fact, the thumbnail has mimesis, gloss, interpolation, deutero. Remember that video? It's all the ways to say inauthentic. And inauthentic is the nice way that Christians use to each other. They don't say it in church. They don't say it during a sermon, but like Christian scholars amongst each other, they will use the word authentic because it's the least offensive, but it all means fake. And you're right.
It's true, and that's what it comes. That's what's calling a spade a spade. That is all. That sort of subterfuge is all part of the fraud of Christianity from beginning to end. It's all fraudulent. Now, okay, it may be justified because some people want to be told silly stories. They want to be told they'll live forever in heaven with Jesus. Okay, but it doesn't make it true. The universe doesn't become what we hope it will be. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a question
okay.
then.
Let's answer this one. So we'll go with Iron Charioteer with 7. So Iron Charioteer is in the lead with 1 point. Okay.
How does the New Testament describe Jesus? Is that a bit tough?
I'm going to take a crack at it, but I'm going to give them a time to type it out. Now you did a video on this. So there's about 4 or 5 different popular ways Jesus is seen, whether you believe he was a magic man, had the superpowers or not. I don't want to say yet because I want people to put something in there.
Think about that one.
Because I might accidentally say the correct answer before someone else does. Let me. Okay, while you're thinking about that one, so basically your question is, how is Jesus portrayed in the Bible as what kind of archetype, right?
Yeah, how is he described, if you like? How is he described?
See, that's kind of a trick question, Ken, because like I said, there's 4 or 5 very popular versions. So we'll go with, I know your videos very well. So whoever comes up with the first one of them that's in one of Ken's videos, we'll go with. And I have to think of another question now. Oh, this one, mine's too easy. I'm not going to go with either of those. The Son of Man.
It's too difficult. It's too difficult.
The Son of Man. He came riding into it. Oh, I'm on a pink one. Okay.
I like that one.
I don't. Okay. No. Oh, okay. You know what? Would this one count as one of the ones you've said in your video as an itinerant preacher? Another one would be someone who could, with clairvoyance, basically someone who could tell the future. Just a prophet.
Some of these may be true, but I'm being a little bit. It is a trick question because there is no description of Jesus in the New Testament. That's the point I was getting to. They may call him it may have a name, but I mean, they cannot even say, he was tall, he was thin. I mean, I've often said, well, how do we know that Jesus wasn't short, fat, and ugly? Why is he always this slender, slightly tall, got a certain kind face, but he's always looked a little bit preoccupied? I mean, because there is no description of him. And isn't that surprising? Well, it isn't really, because if you're inventing something out of the ether, the description comes later on. And of course it is in later centuries, you get all these paintings and sculptures and what have you, because then they know exactly what he looks like centuries later.
In one of your debates online, I think it was a debate, you say Jesus is sometimes seen as a Che Guevara, almost a militant, anti-government, saboteur. So some people see him that way.
Yeah, well, that is one way. Probably more people today might interpret him that way because they try and see, as they would say, the real Jesus behind the story. That's how so many people have written books. Well, we know it's a little bit of a story, but really, who was behind it? And so one of the people they can say, well, he was obviously a Jewish nationalist, and you remember that bit where he tells his disciples to get arm themselves and in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's and so you can, based upon the tiny little bit of literature, say, oh, he was a nationalist, and of course it plausibly fits into a certain scenario in that time and place, but. Equally, you can pick another sentence and you come up with a different character, a faith healer or a philosopher. And they're just bits and pieces, that they have tried to. Well, they do fabricate into the whole.
So I'm for this one. We'll go ahead and give it to atheist content with the prophet one.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Earlier, you brought up there were like 5 semi-famous Jesuses at the time that Jesus might have existed in Jerusalem, and one of your videos was Barabbas, and people forget he was Jesus Barabbas. Jesus was his name too, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
Jesus Bar Abbas, Jesus the Son of the Father. Yeah, isn't that cute, eh?
You know, and like Moses. Moses is an Egyptian name. It just means son of, like Ramses is son of Ra, Moses. Moses just means son of. I mean, how unoriginal can you get when you make up someone out of whole cloth?
Well, it's true. I mean, and we could spend another hour talking about the invention of the Jewish holy book.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, oh no, I was gonna come up. Okay, I'm gonna try to stick to New Testament as much as I can. My next one, number 3, will be how did Judas die? And I'm gonna tell you, it's kind of a trick question, so think about it before you type it out. How did Judas die? Can you? I'm sure. In fact, I know for a fact you already know that one, and why it's a trick question. How did Judas die? While we're waiting for them to throw some answers in there, I want to say at one point there were 37 viewers watching this, and I have to go back and look, but I think Aaron Raw, I think you just beat our all-time record of the most viewers in a live show at any given time. I think you just beat Aaron Raw's record on our show.
Oh, good.
It's crazy.
I had the pleasure of meeting him once. He was over here in the UK, and
awesome.
I met him.
He lives 20 minutes from my house, so he's in our studio pre-pandemic. He was at our recording sessions quite a bit.
Oh, good.
Just a stand-up guy.
Give him my regards.
Oh, sure thing.
He always said I'd be on his show, whatever it was, but he never got round to it.
You know, I'll bring that up. What else do I owe you? I owe you something after this show, right? I'll look at my notes. Talk to Aaron Raw. So there's 2 things I think I owe you at the end. All right. Let's see what we got. All right, atheist content, got one of them. So basically the trick question is, okay, make sure. I want to make sure whoever came up with it first. It's atheist content. Atheist content. I think that's the first. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that was the first time. Yes. So he hanged himself, and in another part of the Gospels, he fell down a hill and his guts exploded. So that is the correct answer. Of course, it's a contradiction.
That's correct. That's correct.
But anyone before that? No. Okay. So atheist content.
And I've heard that those 2 arguments reconciled by a twisting Christian. He was hung on the edge of a mountain or something and fell down the mountain and burst open. So there's no contradiction there.
I've had pastors try to explain it to my face as if we're not going to, come on. Do you really believe what's coming out of your mouth sometimes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you think of another one? That was 3. So atheist content has 2 points. Iron Charioteer has 1. So let's put our heads together and think of some more. I bet if we root around in your brain enough, we can think of one. Maybe
it's getting a bit late here, so my brain is probably getting a bit tired.
18, 19, 20. Yeah, it's like 2100, 9 p.m. there, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Come on, think. See, I should have had these all prepared. Throw out a name, and I'll do a trivia question about it. Oh, no, that's too many answers. There's too many contradictions. When were the Roman soldiers, the centurions, posted at Jesus's tomb? You can give me the day and the time of day. I need the day and the time of day. How's that? When did they finally get around to posting soldiers at the tomb, fearing that Jesus's body was going to be stolen? And I'll give you a hint. They didn't do it right when they put him in the tomb. So there was a nice large window for exactly what they feared would happen to have happened. Okay. All right. Paul Kamish says Friday at 1800. That's not correct. That's actually Jesus died at around 1500, the third hour. Yeah. And he was buried. See, Friday at 1800 was right around when the Sabbath started. So they had to get him in the ground before then. So sometime between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. is when they got him in the ground. Allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
Yeah. So that's when they put him in the tomb. But when did they actually decide to get around to post guards? Someone's got to get this. There's 25 people watching. Someone's got to get this. I'm not even 100% certain, but I think I'm right. We're going to go off what I think is right. I haven't read that portion in the Bible in a while. And be thinking another one, Ken. While we're waiting, let me go back. Truth Surge. That was a really good interview. It's been 5 months since your last video. Have you run out of things to talk about, or do you have some ideas, some upcoming plans for different videos or projects?
To be honest, I paused, and then the COVID epidemic started, and then that was a major preoccupation, and there were so many changes and different styles, and it just writing about Jesus at that point seemed trivial, and there's more. There were more important things to do and worry about. So it's not that I ran out of topics. So I was interested to see what other people contributed to the same thing. So that's true. But no, I've got about 40 unfinished articles and a similar collection of unfinished videos. So
oh really?
Oh yeah.
That is okay. That's promising. That's good to know. So I'll go with Paul Kamish, Saturday at 10. That sounds about right. So Paul Kamish gets a point. It was Saturday morning. It was I got to go back and read it. 10 might be a little late, but that sounds about right. I don't know when Roman soldiers get to work in the morning. They got to have their coffee and meet around the water cooler and talk about the night before. Let me think. Let's think of another one, Ken. Let me just throw an idea out there, and maybe we can build a question around it. The night trial with Herod. Something. What would be a good question about that?
Days and nights on trial. Yeah, day in court, night in court.
What would be a good? How would we frame a question about that? How many disciples were present during the night trial of Jesus and Herod? Okay, we'll go with that. How many disciples were present? Because this was a Truth Surge video. He actually breaks that down, and he said, see, John is the last of the Gospels. So he was doing all the heavy lifting. He already knew about the first three Gospels, and he knew there was a lot of problems with it. So he tried to fix a lot of things in his Gospel. So forget about John. John fixed the problem in his book. So we're just talking about the synoptics right now. We're just talking about Mark, Matthew, and Luke, all right? So how many disciples were present? Oh, he got it. Atheist Content is running away with this content, with this contest. All right, yeah, no one was present. John, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. John fixed it, right?
He fixed some things, and he caused other problems, of course. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. We'll do a couple more. We don't have to do 10.
10?
No, we're not going to do 10. Let's do a couple more. Let's do one more each.
One more each. Okay. One more each. Let me think of a question that's okay.
Oh. How long was Paul in Damascus? How long did it take him to regain his sight after he went blind?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
How long did it take Paul to regain his sight after he went blind? And then be thinking of one more, Ken, and we'll call it a day. Unless someone can pull this out of their butt, it looks like Atheist Content is going to win half of my PayPal. Nope. You're on the right track, Paul. Oh, there it is. Is that the correct answer, Ken? Just to double check.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
The parallel, of course, is 3 days in the tomb. Paul is 3 days in darkness. It's not an original story, the element.
That's right. Okay, you're going to be the final answer, Ken. Let's think of one. If Iron Charioteer gets this, he ties, and we'll need a tiebreaker question. Otherwise, this will be the last one.
Okay, let's ask something about Peter then.
Oh,
Peter. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Was he married?
Can you go with? Well, I shouldn't ask that until afterwards. Can you go with apocryphal books, or does it have to be canonical? I've never read the book of Peter. Oh, is there a book of Peter? There is a Gospel of Peter, yeah. Is that the one with Simon Magus and the whole flying around the Hogwarts spellcasting duel? Was that Peter?
Well, I don't know about Hogwarts, but I mean, there is. They often say Mark wrote the Gospel of Peter, but it's actually Mark's Gospel, so we don't have a Gospel of Peter as such. But there are books allegedly written by Peter. You know.
Mm-hmm. So was Peter married? That's the last question. Oh wait. Okay, so what's the answer, Ken? Because we've already had both answers.
Well, he had a mother-in-law, so I guess he he would have been.
Esther, you got on the board, but that's the end of the game. Yep,
Absolutely.
Esther. She is one of many of the, like we were talking about, the new up and coming content creators. She just changed her name. She was the African Humanist, but now she changed it to the Afro Humanist. Really good content. She's ubiquitous on she's doing the circuit. She's on a lot of these newer channels, and really
more
good
power
stuff.
to your
Yes.
elbow then, to the Afro Humanist.
Yes, good stuff. Okay, so Atheist Content, there's a million ways to get a hold of me. Oh, so here I go. You trust me, or do I have to share the screen?
What are you going to say?
I'm going to check my balance. Do they trust me? Look in the comments section. I don't want them to see my password. That's otherwise. All right.
This is a cash reward, is it?
Yes, it is. All right. So $47.46. So I promised half of that. So what's half of that? $24?
$24. Yeah.
Okay, Atheist Content. There's a million ways to get a hold of me. Just do it and you'll get your money. All right, Ken. Sorry to put you through that. I thought that might have been a little more fun, but
yeah. Well, this is a change on passing the plate round for a collection, isn't it? You're giving money out.
Yes.
So
next time I will pre-design the question so we don't sit here and I thought I'd be able to spit them out quicker, but I just don't have that kind of wit. Let's finish up with your final thoughts. We didn't really talk about the mythicism stuff much, but I'm sure you grow weary of that because every time you come on someone's show, that's all they want to hear. But so what are your plans for the future? What are you working on? What are we going to be seeing on your channel? And where can we find you?
Well, I don't know quite what I'm going to be putting on the channel, but you probably helped inspire me. I mean, a few people have been asking me over recent times, so can we have some more stuff? And, when are you going to do an update and what have you? So, okay, I'm nudged, but I am. I mean, I'm actually very keen on astrophysics physics at the moment, and cosmology. So that's what takes up a lot of my time. But we'll do something. We'll do something.
Okay.
I'm not dead yet. I realised when I stopped publishing stuff, people might have thought I was dead, but I'm not dead yet. And yeah, I can still string a few bits together. So we'll do something. We'll do something.
Who
But it's
in
been
particular?
great fun chatting to you. It really has.
Yeah, I've got 2 saved rounds. Who are you watching? Are you consuming YouTube a lot? You say astrophysics.
I do watch
cosmology?
YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube, but it is actually more engaging than I find traditional terrestrial television, which is dire. But
Same here.
YouTube, you can find very intelligent, interesting stuff. It's absolutely true.
There is a atheist YouTuber named Digital Hammurabi, and it's deep dives into different types of history. I'm really into that right now. I don't know why, but all the flat Earth debunkers, and you guys know who I'm, Simon Dan and Dave Explains, I think is. So I don't know why I enjoy people just. It's breaking down flat Earth claims. In a way they shouldn't have to, but they do it. You know, I don't know. It's giving them too much credit, but I don't know why I'm into that.
I don't know if you'd agree with me on this, that I actually think really we shouldn't need the word atheist, because it's just normal and natural not to believe in nonsense. You know,
correct.
It's the fact that we have to say we don't believe in gods, you know, is sort of only because of reaction to Christians, and they have assumed everything for themselves, of course. But times are changing.
Last question. I forgot to ask you, what are you currently reading? That was one of the questions I did want to ask you. What are you in the middle of reading, or what have you just finished up?
Okay. This is the last book. I've just about read it now. There we are. Maximinus Thrax. He's a Roman emperor, and you know, my first love is, of course, Roman history, not history of Christianity, which is nonsense. But you know, so I try and get up to speed with Roman literature.
You love talking about Jesus as much as I do, and we are unabashed, outspoken atheists. Why is that, Ken? Can you tell me why we are so interested in a subject that we think is complete BS?
Well, I can say this, that I've been opposed to Christianity all my life, you know, not actively opposed to it, but you just thought this is rubbish. And I thought that as a very young child. I thought, there's no man in the sky. Don't be silly. You know, he's not watching me, you know, and I never believed it for an instant, you know, in my earliest school days. So, you know, and so I spent most of my life reading history, right? But then you so often come across something that contradicts everything that religion or Christianity claims, that you think, I wish these people who think Jesus was this, that, and the other, they actually knew a bit of real history. And that's what prompted me to start the idea of writing stuff about it. So they've got to know this. They've got to know what the reality is, not this fantasy world, you know. And unfortunately, people don't have much of a grasp of what the ancient world was like, you know. They really don't. It was a desperate world, and a harsh world, and a very superstitious world, you know, and all kinds of ideas flourished or spread and copied and competed with each other. And if you visit the ancient cities, as I've done quite a lot of it, you see the remains of their various temples and you know, in their towns, and you can see how for thousands of years people were religious, but all those religions, of course, are dead now. Christianity is one that is just lingering on for a bit longer.
Is there a video of you in the Czech Republic talking about the history of that as it relates to the Bible, or am I thinking of someone else? There's another Brit named Notori UK. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. Say No to Religion. He's only got maybe 10 videos out. He didn't make a huge mark, but it was either you or him. You were in the Czech Republic. Yeah, you do travel a lot. You were in
Well,
Greece.
I
I
can't
know
recall
that.
going to the Czech Republic, but yeah. It gives you an insight. It gives you an insight.
I think that will do it. Ken Humphreys, all his links, anything you need to know about where to find him and what he's doing is in the description section. So go check that. I'm telling you, I'm not asking. You got to go check his stuff out. It's going to be well worth your time. Thank you so much, Kenneth Humphreys. It has been you don't know how much of an honor this has been. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Been enjoyable. You take care.
Take care now.
Bye now.